Right, hello guys. This video today is about semiotic analysis and especially applying that to a magazine front cover. We're going to learn how you can use different areas to analyse what the message of the media text is. So what is semiotics? Well, semiotics is the study of signs and it's trying to interpret the meaning. So a picture says 1,000 words, but what words are they trying to say? Semiotics is broken down into different sections. You've got denotations, which is what something literally means, and you've got connotations, which is what the suggested meaning of that thing is. So when you see this, what suggested meaning is there? What does it make you feel? What does it make you think about? What's implied by it being there? But we're not going to go into too much detail about semiotics. I think that's another video. For this particular video, the main focus is how we can break down a magazine's front cover and do the denotations and the connotations and come up with what the meaning of that text is. Okay, so let's just crack on, shall we? Okay, so there's 6 parts to a good semiotic analysis of a magazine cover. The 6 sections that we need to look at to make sure that we don't miss anything are: number 1, design and layout. So when we're talking about design and layout, what we're talking about here is the rule of thirds, negative and positive space. We're also talking about juxtaposition and how they can all sort of link together. Now what I like to do is I like to do a denotation first. So just pull out everything you can see. How is it constructed using the rule of thirds, or is it? How have they used negative or positive space, and is there any juxtaposition? At that very first level, you should just try to identify exactly what you can see. Then what I tend to do is I then look at the suggested meaning of that. Now, to go into a bit more detail about design and layout, the rule of thirds is really where you can take a grid and you can divide a picture up by 9 sort of equal spaces. And there's a whole list of things like the golden rule, the golden ratio, which is based on the Fibonacci swirl, or you've just got the grid. Most cameras now will have this grid in a setting that you can do. When you use Photoshop and you try to crop something, it automatically applies the rule of thirds. So it's just a really good technique for helping a picture look good. And the way it works is that our brains are programmed to see things not symmetrical and not even. So very rarely does something look particularly natural or good if you're looking at it straight on and it's dead centre and it's taking up all the image. Because in nature that's not how things are. In nature you look at a tree and it's sort of 2/3 high, and then the top of it is the tree, and then the stem is the central bit. The top of the tree comes outwards. Not every tree, obviously, but then you've got all sorts of things, a whole host of natural things that I could put up, that I will put up actually. Okay, and we use the rule of thirds in photography really to help create a nice composition, something that appeals to the eye. And we can also use it to create meaning. So sometimes people will be positioned in certain places because that creates meaning. Something might be at the forefront or in the background, or something might be overlooking. Okay, so the rule of thirds isn't always just flat either, it can include depth, that sort of third dimension. You've got negative and positive space. Positive space are the areas of interest, and your negative space is sort of the empty space, if you like, that's just around that area of interest. But sometimes you can hide some meaning in that. Sometimes the negative space can also give a lot of meaning, can also include sort of shapes and symbols in order to imply some meaning. And then juxtaposition is just where things are placed together and they contrast, they stand out more because of how contrasting they are to each other. So we've got design and layout. Number 2 is typography. And typography is basically anything to do with letters or words that are on the screen. And it's the font that they use, the size of it might imply importance or not importance, the style of it. So if everything on the page is all different fonts, different styles, then you can expect that the content of that magazine is all going to be different content all over the place. If it's all the same font and same style, you might expect some consistency throughout the magazine. So things to look for when we're doing our denotation, okay, is the size of the text and the font style. So has it got serifs? Has it not got serifs? So is it sans serif? Are the different colours being used? And the next section, so section number 3, is verbal codes. And with the verbal codes, we're talking about the titles, the slogans, any anchorage text that you can see, any words that are on the page at all. And we can denote what their meaning is, so literally what are they saying. We can also look at the implied meaning, so the connotations of what they're saying, and also the way they're saying it. So what kinds of words are they using? How are they positioning the audience? So is it a direct mode of address? Is it talking to you? And we can also look at colloquialisms or just general slang or use of language, and that helps us put into context who the audience is, who it is that they're trying to actually appeal to here. So far we've got 3. Number 4 then are the non-verbal codes, and by non-verbal codes we really mean any pictures that are included in the poster, the magazine cover, whatever it is that we're analysing. So we can start off with the mise en scène, so costume, props, any sort of hair, makeup, facial expressions, any body language that's being used, anything to do with costume, images, body position, any visual aspects of the image. Okay, and it can be anything from the way the person is positioned, the expression on the face, the clothes that they're wearing, the props that you can see. It might be that there's a background, and what can you see in the background, what can you see in the props. Okay, it could be the hand gestures. Okay, so loads of different things can be going on that will imply some meaning that can be taken from the non-verbal codes. So number 5 is the colour palette, and with the colour palette really colours imply so much meaning, and the combination of colours can imply meaning especially. So if there's a lot of red, you know, that could imply passion, could imply horror, could imply violence. So there's a number of things that you can take from the colours that are being used. Right, and then finally we look at the photographic codes. Okay, and this is how an image is cropped really. So is it a high angle shot? Is it a low angle shot? Is it a close-up? Is it a medium shot? So this right now is a medium shot, and it is at a high angle, so it's looking slightly down. Okay, all of those things imply a meaning, create a sort of atmosphere. Okay, so these are all things that you should be looking at. What we're going to do then is we're going to look at those 6 key areas, and we're going to apply them to 2 magazine covers. The first magazine cover is one that the AQA Media Studies have given us in a practice exam. so it's a good one to pick apart. And then the other one is just a similar one that I found just to reinforce some of that practice. So to start off with then, we're going to look at Wiz Khalifa on the front cover of True magazine. Let's look at the design and layout. The black and white image and the bits of it that are in red. So you'll notice that some of the words are in red and they just really contrast. The red really stands out because of its contrast against the black and white. It's a very simplistic design. It's not overly complicated. There's no additional images or extra things going on here. You've really just got one image with a few headlines, a few slogans and taglines, not very many words actually compared to some other magazine covers. If we look at positive and negative space, we can assume that Wiz Khalifa is the positive space, he's the point of interest. There's no background there, okay? It's just a grayscale background, there's nothing there of any notice, and in many ways that draws the focus, that draws the attention to Wiz Khalifa. Some of the words, the dates, the magazine title are partially obscured by the photograph, which makes it look quite cool, and it's sort of a sense of cool. Also, magazine covers tend to do this to reward those readers who read the magazines regularly. So if part of the magazine title is obscured or covered, it's sort of like a nod to people who regularly buy it to say, I don't need to know that this is True magazine, I don't need to know it's Time magazine, I don't need to know it's Glamour, I recognise enough of it to know, and it sort of acts as a reward to the readers. But it looks dynamic, it looks quite cutting edge. Okay, so if I move on to the typography now, let's look at the size of text to start with. The text isn't a uniform size, they're all different sizes, and we can connote, so if we denote it, the text size is all different sizes, and the connotations of that are that they've got different levels of importance. The True being relatively large, the largest font, so that is the magazine. Wiz Khalifa being the next largest, and he is the focus of this magazine. And then the word king on his hat actually is the next largest thing. And they all have an implied meaning. You know, the word king has connotations of dominance, of power, and that's a recurring theme that we're going to pick out in this magazine cover. It's a mixture of white and red. We have connotations with that. The white is authentic, it's pure, it's honest. The red has connotations of hip-hop because of the violence, because of the danger, but also elements of passion because it's red, and romance and passion are red. It's all the same font, so that signifies that there's going to be some coherence throughout the magazine, that it's all going to be about the same sort of thing, which makes sense because we can read it is a hip-hop magazine. So whilst we're on the topic of the typography, let's look at the words themselves and those verbal codes. Okay, so the actual title of the magazine is True, and you know, the denotation of true is honesty, it's truth. So there's an association there to something that's authentic. Also, true has connotations because it is something that is used in hip-hop culture, okay, as a kind of language. The slogan on his hat, so I mentioned earlier about the word king. King carries associations of power, of dominance, so this could imply that Wiz sees himself as a dominant figure in hip-hop, as the king of hip-hop. And there's a tagline at the bottom that says, "And you think you know me." And this is contrasted, it's contrasted in red from the rest of the font. So first of all, it's different to the rest of the font, and it's almost trying to imply a contrast, that you've got this image of someone who looks dominant, who's wearing the word king on the hat, but the tagline, "And you think you know me," implies there might be more to it, that there might be some other thing. The tag, "And you think you know me," perhaps creates a sense of mystery there, a contrast. So some of the images suggesting at this point that he's powerful, that he sees himself as a dominant figure, but in contrasting colours in the font, it's starting to contradict that, implying a sense of It's subverting some of those messages. Right, so let's look at the non-verbal codes. This is really the biggie now. So this is the actual image. So we'll go all words aside, all font aside, just looking at the actual image of Wiz. The mise-en-scène, the things that he's wearing, the positioning, the facial expressions, all of that, what meaning is there? Alright, well, so to start off with then, that he's wearing sunglasses. And sunglasses have a sense of mystery about them. The absence of eye contact makes the subject seem a bit less vulnerable. Okay, so in some cases, there's a sense of mystery there. There's also a sense of power because he's not making eye contact. However, you can partially see through those sunglasses and you can partially see some of his eyes. So an element of contradiction again within this image. It's a very good image. You could talk about how the emotions are hidden behind the shades, and also the shadow of the peak of his cap creates a sort of a mask to his eyes and to his emotions. He's holding his hat like this, and that has associations of like a salute. Someone tips their hat out of respect. It looks a bit like a salute. So all of those things contradict some of the other messages about him being powerful and about him being the king of hip hop and about him being dominant, because he's tipping his hat, he's showing respect. So it's more contrary. So even more things here that are a bit conflicting. There seem to be two messages that are coming out of this. One of dominance and power and arrogance, and one that subverts that, one that challenges that, says there's a bit more to this. Look through the sunglasses and you'll see a bit more of me. I'm tipping my hat, my crown of power, out of respect. Okay, so quite good things. This is of course all reinforced by "and you think you know me" tagline. He's got a neck tattoo. Okay, so neck tattoos in themselves have elements of hip hop culture. The tattoo on the neck, quite, it sort of links to subcultures within gangs, especially within hip hop, gangster rap, things like that. However, the content of these tattoos is a little bit different. So the tattoos are flowers and music notes. Okay, so that again subverts this. It subverts the stereotype of gang subculture. Let's go into a little bit more detail with it though. Flowers themselves have connotations of romance and passion. I would certainly say to have a tattoo on your neck requires a certain amount of passion, because it must be quite difficult to endure. We all know tattoos are painful, and to have them on your neck implies, one, that you're quite strong, and that's where the subculture for the gangs comes from, but also that you're quite passionate. So if you link that neck tattoo with the idea of passion, and you add in the music note, there's certainly a concept there that Wiz Khalifa is certainly passionate about the music that he makes, about music. The fact that it's black and white gives a sense of authenticity. Okay, when we say something is black and white, we mean what you see is what you get. We mean that it's honest. The use of red, as we've already discussed, really makes it stand out. Okay, it's very contrasting with the black and white. And red has its own connotations, again, of violence or danger, which certainly links to that subculture, iconic hip-hop tradition. But also, red can link to romance and to passion, which again reinforces what we were talking about with the neck tattoo and with some of the other connotations that are in here. Okay, so finally, we've got the photographic codes. So there's a tight cropping. You can't see all of the hat, you can't see the shoulders, you can't see all of his hand. It's a very tightly cropped shot, and it makes Wiz Khalifa's face the main subject of the magazine. It's a real close-up on his face and his expression. Because it's a close-up and it's low angle, you're looking up at Wiz Khalifa. and it has implications of dominance and power. All of these things tie in with the sunglasses, all of these things tie in with the word king on his cap. So there's a reoccurring theme here of dominance, of power as an important hip-hop cultural icon. So to conclude with this magazine, okay, so putting everything that we've looked at, those 6 different elements, what do we get out of it? What is the message? I would say the message is that within the hip-hop industry, Wiz Khalifa sees himself as a dominant, imposing, superior figure in hip-hop, but that there is an element of vulnerability, a real Wiz behind the glasses, a truer, more passionate Wiz Khalifa who's just really passionate about hip-hop music, about the music that he creates, about the voice perhaps that he's representing. Okay, so let's look at the design and layout of this. Straight away, the rule of thirds, we can see most of the image is taken up with Chad. However, it's really a centralised shot, and that top third and the central bit is really where his eye line is and his facial expression. Again, there's no negative space. The negative space is empty, which makes it all about him, and the focus is all on him. No background, nothing else. And it's quite a dark black and white image, so he really stands out. He really juxtaposes with the white background, and it also makes the iconic red border and the Time magazine really stand out as well. Okay, in terms of typography, we've got the font style. The Time has got those iconic serifs coming out the side. However, the rest of the font on there is all in sans serif, very simplistic. However, if we look at the style a bit more, it seems to be stretching upwards, so it looks a little bit like it is rising. Again, there's no other text on there, so there's not too much to read into it. If we look at the size of font, the Time magazine is the largest, then a hero rises as a byline, and then it anchors in that it's the superpower of Black Panther, slightly smaller. So let's have a look at the non-verbal codes. Chad's expression is quite solemn. He looks quite stern, but it's not an angry or a sorrowful expression. It's an intense, thoughtful, thought-provoking look, almost an element of pride. His head's tilting slightly backwards, and he seems to be quite powerful in this shot, like he's towering over you. He's got his hand on his heart, and this links in with what we often see. We've seen a lot of leaders during a time of recognition or remembrance putting their hand onto their heart as an act of respect. So this is something that you often see from someone in power who is showing some form of respect to other people. If we look at the verbal code, it says a hero rises, and we know that this is the first debut of Black Panther, so there are indications that it's an up-and-coming talent from an up-and-coming actor. The colour palette, black and white, again, a sense of authenticity. The red, a sense of danger, a sense of action perhaps. And if we look at the way that it's cropped, it's a medium shot, but you can't see the arms except to see that the hand's on the chest. Again, it's a low angle, which gives a sense of dominance, of superiority. See, he appears to be looking down at the camera. And it really focuses on his facial expression and where he's standing. He's almost standing to attention with his hand on his heart. Okay, so that concludes our semiotic analysis of magazine covers. I really hope that you found it quite useful, and I would recommend that you practice this on unseen magazine covers. Get onto Google, type in magazine cover, and just have a go. Just start to denote what you can see, and then look at the connotations of what that could mean. In order to make sure that you don't miss anything, it is always worth going through those 6 different stages: design and layout, typography, verbal codes, non-verbal codes, the colour palette, and the photographic codes. Okay, so again, if you want any handouts or if you want anything to help you remember them, if you follow the links, you can download some resources that I've put together, just little help sheets and help guides that you can use to help you when you're analysing your own magazine covers. Okay, so that's it from me. Next time we'll be looking at analysing a magazine cover using narrative theories. So it's a bit more tricky, but still a lot of fun. Okay, thanks very much. See ya.